Micah was the first to notice something was wrong, though he'd never admit that out loud. Not because he was afraid, but because what he saw shouldn't have happened. Not here. Not on a warm May afternoon when families packed the bleachers, clutching roses and foam fingers, their faces sweaty with joy and cheap sunscreen. Not in the middle of a university graduation ceremony, with brass bands echoing and names being called like prayers into the blue sky. But it did happen. And now, you're the only one who will ever know the truth. Because somehow, this footage was never supposed to surface. Somehow, this story slipped through the cracks. That it begins with her. A black woman in a white dress, seated in the reserved section near the front, not flashy, not disruptive. She wasn't clapping or cheering or holding a sign, she was just present still, like a page in a book you didn't mean to read but can't close now. And then something shifted. Not loud, no screaming, just a slight stir, like the crowd around her blinked wrong, like time buckled for half a second. A security guard tapped her shoulder, gesturing to stand. No explanation, no name asked. You can see her turn slowly, eyes narrowed not in confusion, but something deeper, like she expected this, like she'd been here before. And then she whispered something not to the guard, not to the crowd, but to herself. That's where the audio cracks. The sound bites, every one of them from every angle, every recording that day. Dipped for less than half a second, right there, static. Like her voice didn't want to be heard, or wasn't meant to be recorded. But here's what no one talks about. What not a single news outlet mentioned in the 2-minute reports before they vanished. 6 men appeared, not from the crowd, not from the sides. Not in uniform, but unmistakably military. Navy SEAL duty, maybe, but trained eyes don't lie. They didn't run. They didn't raise their voices. They walked deliberate, synchronized and surrounded her like they'd rehearsed it. No words, just stillness. The kind that hums beneath your skin like a coming storm. The guards stepped back. One dropped his walkie. The dean of the college paused mid-sentence. No one clapped anymore. The ceremony didn't resume. And then, like it was scripted, the live stream cut out. But you wouldn't know that unless you saw the backup feed. One, from Micah's phone. A wide, shaky shot from the far end of the bleachers, zoomed in as much as his battery could allow. It caught her looking directly into the lens, past it, really, into you, into us, and she said clear this time, unmistakable, he's awake. That's when the baby, 3 rows down, said a name no one knew, said it twice. Arlen. His mother froze. Her husband stood like a man in shock, like he was back in a war he never told her about. And that's when Micah's phone fully charged. No apps open, overheated, and shut down. Later, he swears he heard a voice through his car radio on the way home. Not a broadcast, not a song. Just a voice dry, familiar, asking, "How many times will you make us do this?" You can't find the footage anymore. It's been scrubbed. You can't even Google the woman's name. They removed it from the program. But there's one thing you can still see. You pause the backup frame at 12:36, right before the seals appear. A reflection in the lens of the guard's sunglasses. It's not the stage. It's not the crowd. It's a long hallway with red lights, blinking down the sides and a door that's slowly swinging open. No one ever saw her leave. Micah didn't sleep that night, not really. He laid in bed with his eyes open, motionless, the glow of the streetlight cutting bars across his ceiling like a prison. His phone stayed face down on the nightstand, turned off. It wasn't fear that kept him from checking it. It was something, worse, something closer to shame, like he'd stared too long into a thing he had no business looking at. But still, his brain kept replaying it. Her eyes locking onto his camera. The words, "He's awake." What the hell did that mean? And why? Did it feel like she was talking to him? He tried to talk himself down. Maybe she was schizophrenic. Maybe the seals were just family. Maybe the baby thing was a coincidence. Rational thoughts, rational tone. The kind you use to calm someone else down. But when he finally powered the phone back on, the video was gone. Not corrupted, not erased. Gone, as if it had never been there. Even the cache was empty. But the worst part was that Micah didn't remember uploading it. He didn't remember even saving it, and when he checked the photos in his camera roll from that day, they stopped 2 hours before the ceremony began. There were scratches on the back of his hand he couldn't explain, thin, almost surgical. 4 of them, angled diagonally like something sharp had brushed against him while he wasn't looking. His knuckles felt bruised, like he'd punched something in his sleep. And somewhere in the background of all of this, a sound, faint, like a whisper inside a tunnel, not tinnitus, not white noise. It almost sounded like ... breathing, like someone holding their breath right next to him. Micah got up, poured himself a drink, and that's when he noticed the voicemail. 2:13 a.m. no caller ID, asterisk, 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 asterisk length, 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 0 seconds. At first he assumed it was just another spam bot, but when he played it back, he heard something buried under the silence. Not a voice, not clearly, just a click, like a switch being flipped, or a latch being opened. And after that, just silence, but not empty silence. It was full of something. like someone was listening from the other side. Like the call wasn't meant to deliver a message but to open a channel. The next day, the world acted like nothing had happened. The university released a press statement about a minor misunderstanding during the ceremony. No mention of SEALs. No mention of anyone being removed. The event livestream had been quietly taken down, due to a technical issue. The media had already moved on. There was a story trending about a rare sun halo in Montana and a celebrity car crash in Arizona. No one was asking questions. No one else remembered. And when Micah called Chris's friend, who had been sitting right next to him, watching the whole thing unfold, Chris laughed. "What SEALs, man? You feeling all right?" Micah felt the room tilt slightly. "You don't remember any of that?" he asked. "There was some chick in the wrong seat. Security moved her. That's it. Chill, dude." But Micah knew something was off. Chris had taken pictures that dated since he'd been proud of his graduation speech. But when Micah asked to see them, Chris said his phone had factory reset somehow, like it just wiped itself clean. That's when the dream started. Micah kept waking at 3:12 a.m. sharp, drenched in sweat, his ears ringing like he'd been standing too close to a jet engine. He couldn't remember the dreams, not clearly, but there were colors that didn't make sense, places that felt too familiar, like they'd been stapled to the inside of his brain before he was born. Red lights, a hallway, something waiting at the end, barely breathing, the kind of dream that felt like it was watching you. Back then he met her again. She was waiting on the bench across from his apartment. Same white dress, same stillness. But this time, she looked older, tired in a way that didn't match the days that had passed. She didn't say hello, just looked up at him and said, "You felt it, didn't you?" He didn't know what to say. "What is it?" he asked. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "It's not a what, it's a return." Micah sat down, even though his legs screamed to run. There was something magnetic about her, something you couldn't walk away from, no matter how wrong it felt. "Why me?" "Because you didn't look away." She reached into her pocket and handed him something, an old, cracked cassette tape. No label, just a rusted spool and a familiar, ugly weight. "Play this somewhere quiet, somewhere true." What the hell does that mean? But she was already walking away, each step echoing like it didn't belong in this world. Micah didn't own a cassette player. Who did anymore? He drove for 3 hours until he found one at a flea market, paid cash. When he finally played the tape, it started with nothing, then static, then something underneath it, a voice, female, crying, sobbing quietly, and beneath that, a second voice, flat and mechanical, repeating the same phrase every 8 seconds. Asterisk, "You were not supposed to remember this." Asterisk, asterisk, "You were not supposed to remember this." Asterisk, asterisk, "You were not supposed to remember this." Asterisk, and then cut, a high-pitched tone that made Micah vomit into the sink. When he tried to rewind, the tape was blank. That night, someone knocked on his door. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. When he opened it, there was no one there, but a USB drive sat on his doorstep, wrapped in an old page from the New York Times. The date, June 12, 1998. A date Micah couldn't forget. He was 7 years old when his cousin drowned that day. A freak accident at a church picnic. Or so he was told. He hadn't thought about it in years, but now he realized he'd never cried. Not once. He hadn't even gone to the funeral, because he couldn't remember being there. When he plugged in the drive, it contained only one file, a silent black and white video of a room Micah didn't recognize until he did. A room with a one-way mirror, a table, and someone sitting in the corner, staring at the wall. It was him, younger, maybe 20, gaunt, twitching, and writing something in a spiral notebook over and over. Asterisk, "Stop them from waking him. Stop them from waking him. Stop them." Asterisk, the screen glitched. Then, the figure looked up and mouthed something directly into the lens. Asterisk, asterisk, "We were in the red hallway before. Don't go back." Asterisk, asterisk, Micah dropped the laptop. It slammed shut and powered down. His reflection stared back from the screen. That's when he started seeing him. In reflections, in shadows, in places that made no sense. Always just out of focus. A figure in a clean gray suit. No face, just pressure. The kind of pressure that makes your teeth ache. And every time he saw the man, he heard a faint echo, like a memory submerged underwater. Asterisk, asterisk, "Don't let the woman say his name." Asterisk, asterisk, Micah stopped leaving the apartment. He stopped answering the door. Chris stopped calling. The world felt like a film playing on loop, just slightly out of sync. He heard news anchors say names they shouldn't know. He started hearing footsteps in his apartment when he was alone. And then came the voice again, this time from his laptop speakers. "Despite the power being off, asterisk, asterisk, you wanted the truth. But not all of it was meant for you. Asterisk, asterisk, now here's the thing. Micah is missing. He vanished 2 weeks ago, and no one filed a report. His apartment is empty. The building manager claims he moved out. His name was never on the lease. There's no record of his enrollment at the university. But the strange part, 2 days ago, a new video surfaced online just for a few minutes before it was pulled. A shaky, grainy shot of a graduation stage, a woman in white, a baby crying, a man screaming just off screen, and for half a second, just before the video cuts, you can see Micah in the crowd holder, staring dead into the lens, and he's mouthing something. But this time, it's not a warning, it's a name no one remembers telling him, a name you shouldn't say out loud. And now that you've heard this, you need to ask yourself something. Before you try to sleep tonight, ***, what's the last thing you don't remember? ***, Micah's reappearance didn't feel real. It wasn't loud. No dramatic news bulletin. No social media frenzy. Just a private message in an inbox he hadn't checked since college sent to his old campus email address. From a faculty login that should have been deactivated a decade ago. The subject line simply read, ***, you're almost there. Check the back of the tape. No signature, no body text. Just those words. And in a moment of hesitant dread, he knew exactly which tape. The cassette, the one with the woman's crying voice and that mechanical chant. He hadn't touched it since the sickness, since the tone, since something in his skull cracked just enough to let something slip through. But now, it felt different, as if the truth was waiting, inches away like a splinter beneath skin that begged to be pulled. He dug the tape out of a drawer full of receipts and batteries. For the first time, he turned it over. It looked identical. No label, no branding. But then he saw it, just barely visible under a peel of grime and time. Ink smudged like it had been drawn on with a shaking hand. WD, the 12th of June, 98. The same date from the newspaper scrap. His cousin's drowning. The picnic. The accident. That afternoon, Micah found himself driving without really remembering how he got into the car. The old church grounds were still there, 30 miles north, in the woods near the state line. The building was shuttered, weeds crawling through the cracks in the stone. The pool behind it, where it had happened, was long drained. But he remembered the smell. Chlorine and summer and metal. And that faint hum of cicadas that always meant something was coming. He sat near the edge of the pool, tape in hand. The cassette player clicked open in his lap, like it had been waiting. And this time, when the audio played, it didn't start with static. It began with laughter. Children. A woman's voice calling for someone named Caleb, not a name Micah knew. Then a splash. Then silence. Then Micah heard his own voice. Young, too young. Don't let him see me, please. Please. I'll be good. More silence. Then the woman's voice, again but lower now. Slower. Micah, sweetheart, he's not done with you yet. The recording ended. He rewound it twice, trying to isolate the voices, to study the inflection, but deep down, he knew. That was his voice. That was her voice. His aunt, the one who died in a car crash 6 months after the drowning. The one everyone said just fell asleep at the wheel. But now, her tone sounded ... rehearsed. As if she'd known what to say long before the day even happened. As if someone had told her. When Micah returned to his apartment, something had changed. The photos on his wall, vacations, birthdays, college, nights had all shifted. The faces looked wrong. Smiles too wide, eyes too blank. In one photo, he saw someone he didn't recognize standing in the corner at his graduation. A man in gray, no face, just a presence, watching, not just him, but the entire room. That was the first moment Micah felt sure that this wasn't just a memory glitch. This wasn't trauma, wasn't grief-twisting perception. It was a pattern. He started digging. Old newspapers, local obituaries, Facebook comments buried on church pages from the late 90s, and it was all there. Swaddle. Easy to miss unless you knew the shape of the shadow you were chasing. 5 children, all from towns within a 3-hour radius. Drowned. All on June 12, 1998. Each one buried with Samsay Squatra engraved on their tombstones. Micah visited the nearest one. A boy named Aaron Barnes, age 9. Nothing about the cemetery seemed unusual, except the grave looked disturbed. Fresh soil, no flowers, as if someone had visited recently or worse. Dug in when he bent down to brush leaves away from the headstone. He saw something carved into the base. Not by machine, by hand. He was not supposed to wake up. It felt like the air had turned to static. Suddenly, everything in his life started clicking into place, but in the wrong order. His memories didn't line up the way they used to. He couldn't recall the name of his second-grade teacher, but he did remember the pattern of lights on the ceiling of a room he had no reason to have been in. He remembered the smell of antiseptic and burning plastic, remembered hands pressing on his temples, a voice counting backwards, not for anesthesia but for alignment. The breakthrough came that night. He found a hard drive buried behind a false panel in his apartment closet, his apartment, the one he didn't remember choosing. Inside were documents, photos, surveillance footage, of him, notes about behavioral shifts, a thick file labeled WD Regression Attempt 14. The footage was dated July 2009. Micah watched the grainy, black and white video. He was strapped to a chair, eyes forced open with surgical tape. A man's voice spoke from behind the lens. Micah, do you remember? The hallway. He shook his head. Do you remember his name? Mika's video self began sobbing, shaking, and then said something that changed everything. Asterisk, asterisk, it's not my memory, it's his. He left it in me. Asterisk, asterisk, the screen flickered. And just for a moment, just long enough, Mika saw something. Before, same woman from graduation, younger, standing behind the glass, watching, then turning away. And this time, he remembered her name, Lena Wallace, his 5th grade substitute teacher. The woman who disappeared halfway through the semester after a personal emergency. The one who made the class memorize a prayer that wasn't in any Bible. The one who stared at him too long when he said he didn't dream. He had dreamt every night. Red halls, doors that wouldn't lock, a man who didn't speak, only watched. And now the illusion was cracking. Micah confronted his mother for the first time in years. She answered the door with the same warm smile, the same untouched decor in her kitchen, but something in her eyes was wrong. Like the lights were on, but something else was using her voice. "You're not crazy, sweetheart," she said. Without being asked, "They just told you that." Micah's blood ran cold. She poured tea, lavender, just like when he was a child. She never touched hers. "You weren't meant to stay awake this long," she said, softly. "It's not safe." He asked who he was. The one Lena whispered about, the one who left memories behind, the one they kept trying to suppress, but she didn't answer. Instead, she said something that made his skin crawl. "Micah, do you remember your brother? He didn't have one. He was an only child." "No," he said. She smiled like a switch had flipped in her face. Then it worked. She whispered, and just like that, she stood up, walked to the hallway, and closed the door behind her. Micah sat alone. At the table, shaking his hands felt too large. His body felt borrowed. That night, Micah found one more file. Hidden inside an encrypted folder labeled Asterisk Reintegration Protocol. WD asterisk inside was footage from the graduation. But it wasn't the same video he'd seen before. It was from another angle, another day. The woman in white wasn't there. No baby, no seals. Just a ceremony. Quiet, unbroken. Micah, seated in the crowd. Calm, normal. And then the frame froze. Zoomed in. Micah, in the front row. Wearing a gray suit. Watching himself. 2 versions. Same space. One watching. One being watched. And just before the video ended, a voice, his own voice, spoke over the silence. "You've been remembering it backwards." Suddenly, every moment in this story collapses. Micah didn't witness the mystery. Micah is the mystery. Micah didn't record the woman. She came to asterisk record him. Micah wasn't fighting to uncover the truth. The truth was trying to shut him down. And you were never watching his story. You were watching your own asterisk reflection. Now that you've seen it, now that you felt that flicker in your memory, that echo in your dream, that moment you forgot the name of your best friend from 3rd grade. It means you've been part of it from the beginning. And just before the screen cuts to black, one last whisper crackles through the static. Asterisk, asterisk, don't rewind it. He learns faster each time. Asterisk, asterisk, the first sign came quietly slipped into a Reddit thread marked as resolved. A user called Memory Drain 93 posted a grainy photo of an old school hallway. Fluorescent lights flickering like dying stars. Floor smeared with something that wasn't blood but left the same feeling in your gut. The walls were lined with lockers except there were no handles. Just one word etched, again and again, in black marker. Asterisk, asterisk, return. Asterisk, asterisk, the post had no caption, just coordinates. A burned-out middle school outside Ashland, Oregon, abandoned. Since 2002, after a gas leak supposedly triggered mass hallucinations during a fire drill. No names were released to the public. No student interviews. No video coverage. But someone replied to the thread with a sentence that shouldn't have made sense. Asterisk, it started with the boy in the red shirt who remembered the hallway that didn't exist. That post was removed within 3 minutes. But in that small window, 42 people screen captured it, and only 5 of those people still have functioning accounts. Micah wasn't alone. Others were watching, and some of them had seen more than he had. He began receiving emails with no subject line, just attachments. Loris images of symbols scratched into subway walls, classroom desks, and more disturbingly mirrors. A triangle made of 3 half circles, always carved at a downward angle, like someone had drawn it while being watched. One video showed a woman sleepwalking through a grocery store at 2:47 a.m., barefoot and whispering the same line repeatedly. Asterisk, asterisk, it's not memory if someone else left it there. Asterisk, asterisk, what disturbed Micah most was what she looked at before walking out the sliding doors. The security camera caught her gaze. Not at anyone, but through the camera. Like she was speaking to whoever would review the footage. Like she knew Micah would see it. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was architecture. Asterisk, asterisk. They'd built the forgetting. Asterisk, asterisk, layered it like insulation between generations. He could feel it in the air now, in the way strangers sometimes flinched when they looked at him too long. In the way certain corners of buildings had a familiar smell he couldn't place. In the way dreams always turned back into the same hallway, regardless of how they began. That same cold floor, the red lights, the door. Everyone dreaming it saw the same thing. There were now dozens of posts buried on message boards, with usernames long abandoned, describing the same structure, not a room, not a prison, a threshold, somewhere between memory and something deeper. One user called it the fold room, another simply labeled it WD, but they all said the same thing. You wake up changed. Micah started to receive drawings hand-delivered, no postage, slid under his door, left on the windshield of his car, childlike sketches in crayon, always the same, a figure drawn in thick black lines, standing in front of a door marked with that same symbol. But what turned his blood to ice was the way the figure was drawn. Just a silhouette, no face, just a line where the mouth should be, and above it, always scribbled in a rush, asterisk, asterisk, don't trust the quiet ones, they remember best. Asterisk, asterisk, this is where it changed. Because up until then, Micah had assumed he was the observer, the unlucky witness who'd stumbled onto something too large to explain. But the notes kept using the second person. You, not he, not Micah. Someone was talking to him like he wasn't who he thought he was. Like they knew something about him that he didn't. That's when the observer made contact. Not a name, not a face, just an IP string traced to a defunct research lab outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. The email subject read, asterisk, asterisk, you were right all along. Asterisk, asterisk attached was a VHS rip of what looked like security footage marked asterisk, asterisk, the 11th of December 2003. Room 7B, subject 16, asterisk, asterisk. It showed a child 8 or 9 seated in front of a TV screen, hooked up to wires, monitored in real time by men in lab coats with clipboards that never moved. The boy never blinked. God never moved. But the TV he was staring at, that was moving, frames upon frames of people walking down the same hallway. Different eras, different clothes, all filmed from the same camera angle. And in each tape, they stop and look back at the camera, at you, as if they knew this would be watched. As if the tape was never meant for them, but for the person watching it 20 years later. At the end of the footage, the boy stands up. No instruction, no trigger, just an instinct. And he mouths one phrase before the tape cuts to static. Asterisk, asterisk, we were the experiment, but you were the control. Asterisk, asterisk, the file ended. But Micah felt something open in his head. Not a memory, a familiarity. He had been in that room. Only now, he was watching it from the other side. He started to remember flashes. A white hallway, cold metal beneath his fingertips. The triangle symbol burned into the ceiling like a watermark, faces behind glass, and a voice, his own voice, speaking to someone hidden. Saying something terrible, again and again, like a mantra. Asterisk, asterisk, take me back before he wakes. Asterisk, asterisk, it was then Micah understood the cruelty of it. This wasn't about memory. It was about timing. Who remembered first, who acted before the pieces could realign. The others were circling widely anonymously. Some of them never spoke aloud, but they used symbols. Chalk on street corners, stickers on payphones, mismatched shoes. One girl in Indiana painted her bedroom walls completely black and carved the words asterisk, it's not a dream if you all wake up at once, asterisk, with a kitchen knife before disappearing. Her phone was found in a local church, recording a voicemail with nothing but 46 minutes of a humming. Noise only detectable at 17,000 hertz. When slowed down, it wasn't humming, it was breathing. All of this lead to one question. Micah had never thought to ask asterisk, what if I'm not Micah? Asterisk, not in the way you ask in a metaphor, but literally. What if identity was another script, another trick? He remembered too much that didn't belong to him. Faces he couldn't name but loved. Pain he hadn't lived through but ached for. And worst of all, memories of being watched. Not once, not at graduation, but all his life. Through mirrors, through screens, through people who suddenly paused, mid-conversation, as if someone had changed the channel behind their eyes. But it all came down to the observer, the third perspective, the only one who'd never forgotten. They wrote again, this time, not digitally. A letter ink soaked through the envelope. No return address, just the same black triangle on the back seal. Inside, a single page, greater than asterisk, you are watching this story because you're part of the equation they can't solve. Not a viewer, a participant. He's been using your reflection to check his progress. Your memory holds the glitch. You've felt it, the skipped second, the repeated phrase, the face in the dream that greets you like an old friend. You knew it was coming, but not when, not how. The mistake was letting you remember this much. The next mistake will be his. Asterisk, Micah folded the paper slowly. And suddenly, his phone buzzed. An airdrop request. Asterisk, asterisk, would you like to receive footage? Room _7B _2025. Move asterisk, asterisk. There were no other devices nearby. He declined. The screen blinked. The request appeared again, until the screen, glitched, and showed the thumbnail anyway. It was him, now sitting at his kitchen table, from a top corner angle, like he was being recorded in real time, but he was alone. No camera, no devices. And just before the image pixelated and vanished, the figure standing behind him leaned down to whisper something directly into his ear. Asterisk, asterisk, he's behind you now. 2. Asterisk, asterisk, the screen went black. But in the reflection of the screen, the outline of a figure remained just a second too long. Tease what you'll remember. Because now you've seen the symbols. You've felt the skipped memory. You've heard the echo. And the observer, they've seen you. You're not crazy. You were right all along. They lied. And now it's waking up again. And the only question left to ask is asterisk, asterisk, when was the first time you dreamed of the hallway?